I was thinking about that too, that maybe like, go ahead, you and Jillian with the question, right, like you.
I think for first and foremost, right, the is being. Can you give us a brief overview on what type of background you? And does the scope really involve ATM model, or you do like this as well, and how do you interact with the customer? So if you can give us a little bit of brief overview, accordingly, colleague would cover the topics. Taking the same aspects.
So, okay, now from the very back to the thing, so I think you just start out by doing survey from this development with different places. And this is my friend from customer and important file manager. And so last year from procurement or supply chain from that. Okay, maybe we will I will describe the general information about the whole development and from customer style. As we mentioned, that is standing up from young industry that we our customers different from is we're focusing MOD, like Air Force, Army, Navy, and the government sector, from the presidential aircraft. Because we are, I think, can say the niche is a customer because we're focusing in the aspect of the so from this standpoint, I think our customers is special for us because we need good so deep dive from our customers because we how about their culture, how about their environment, about the growth of the aircraft. Because mostly our customers focusing in the C-130 okay, from Airport, and we want to grow or develop capability for C-130G, the factor strategy. And right now we handle helicopter from Bell Textron, Bell 412 for pilot, and yeah, and in next year we're focusing in the Dassault manufacturer for Falcon 8X. Yeah, we'll try to get the capability with the government program. It's called OutFat program. We're trying to get the capability. So right now, we just start from the new capability, right? So we need new about we need new information. We need the process about that item, right? And in 2000 and next year, we will to try to get new capability for Airbus 400. Oh, 400, yeah, okay. Young today, the aircraft is coming in the future, right? Yeah, that's the biggest part of our business. So, because the defense industry is hard maybe 2022 or 2021. So we're new, very new, but for this another competitor in the region. So we especially I think we're focusing in that. We're focusing in the big three, but we want to grow. We want to grow for the rotary wheels. More but we should having strong core of engineering. So yeah, we'll already starting and to we need to get about the information and about the culture of the environment. Of the looking for that's we're new in this. That's very good. I think that's from so like
There's two more questions. So from the same capability that you have, that is only base maintenance, right? You don't go and maintain the aircraft on the flight line. That is not your scope. So basically, to come to it, what I'm asking is you don't do turnaround or daily maintenance basically of the aircraft.
What type of services do you?
okay. For daily maintenance, the airports do it all on themselves for the daily maintenance, but for 2 years, 4 years, we take that's our capabilities for Hercules and for the new one for the Falcon 8X and Airbus for Hydrogen, and we're focusing on that sector for daily maintenance.
Will take it. So you only focus on beginning. And second, from your current IT solution perspective, do you also use Swift, the same version of that you maintain on? Like, is it two separate instances? Sorry,
Just environment.
same price.
Environment.
Okay, just a different logic. It's all on the same server, right? Okay, okay. Just want to understand if from a data separation perspective, you're keeping it spread from your.
So the process is clear to have.
Okay.
First is outlook of job card and apply document.
Yes.
The process is familiar. Similar to something maintenance.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
Are you doing any capital service? Record keeping for that, for any of the defense operators.
Oh, yang itu hal yang pekerjaan pekerjaan bisa
And materials, parts, are, I guess, are they providing some of the parts, all of the parts? Where the material for military aircraft, the materials typically come from? Yeah, where do you, who typically supplies the materials, parts for the military aircraft?
Okay. We must answer the question properly. The supplier is mostly from our work, as long as they are registered in our group and list.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
So, the part that we supply to our customer is based on, we purchase it from the work. We send an RPO to list of vendors that are registered in our digital vendor list.
So you are procuring at least some of the parts that are going out of the military aircraft?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those maybe some contribution.
So and the military is providing some as well? Okay. If you're only doing heavy maintenance, then I guess, do you think you don't have any, performance metrics towards, fleet availability or mission readiness, mission capability like that? If you're only doing heavy maintenance, that doesn't matter at all for you guys.
Yes, we will have that specification here. But the individual, if needed, since this SPV handle project based.
Yeah.
Not total maintenance, so not yet. That will take.
And stuff like this.
Just for explanation, I don't know if you've heard of Marshall. Marshall is okay. Absolutely our customer. The end-to-end method, I mean, we have their models on the C130 for global air forces. Some manufacturers. So they do some fabrication of parts as well. And the end-to-end model of C130 is on IFS. So just maybe your customer efficiency.
And
Yeah.
so what we're going to do, um, we didn't realize until sort of late what the attendance plan was. So what I was going to cover for defense was more for defense operations, line maintenance, operational readiness, mission configurations, et cetera. So it would have been things like things like, fully mission capable aircraft, partially mission capable, what's your squadron configuration, what is the current configuration of the aircraft, what are your KPIs for mission readiness and fully mission capable aircraft, et cetera. This is all, and like the aircraft burn down chart for making sure you've got a proper stagger chart for aircraft coming into heavy maintenance. This built on this morning's piece, but because you're only doing heavy maintenance, none of this applies to you. Which kind of means I basically have to do it right, I have to redo everything, which we can't do in half an hour. So I'm gonna try to give you a few high points, but I don't really know what else we can do with it. It's what you're doing, honestly, other than it's on military aircraft, is exactly the same as what we did this one.
That's not already the requirement pretty similar.
Is there anything that you're doing different, other than the type of aircraft we're working on, is there anything you do that is different than what the MRO does on other third-party commercial aircraft?
Currently, we do is similar to the
Yeah, yeah. I say everything is,
Are there any challenges that you're having with Switch to the day that we maybe show, how it would be different and we just do certain, how it goes on?
It's not strictly to export control, item control, you've got funds around that which would be different to commercial.
I think it's more of a separation between what is MRO and what is being done in defense, as well as the separation of the parts. Some of the parts in defense should not be used for commercials.
yeah,
And then maybe the whole process itself should be separated completely with the commercials.
Yeah, so I guess that's what I'd like to start and focus on that piece.
Yes.
It was kind of guided from there. So maybe what I'll do, I'm not going to re-show it, but just give you an idea about what we talked about this morning. So first of all, because of some of the questions that I had, I feel like with SWIFT today, you have like an airline piece and you have an MRO piece that are not connected at all from what it sounds like. They're two different independent modules. Because we were getting questions about how can users work in one but not the other, or work in the other or both, things like that. So we are not disconnected modules. I'll get into the important piece, which is how can you control what people can and can't do and what they can see. But I think first it's important to understand that we are one fully integrated solution. So for example, I'm signed in as a super user right now. I can access absolutely anything that IFS does. Matt did an intro this morning. What do we do? We focus on asset and service intensive industries. So everyone here comes from our aerospace and defense business unit, but we also do oil and gas, telecommunications, field service management. So, very asset intensive, very service intensive, because there's a lot of similarities between. And then we have attending parts that go with that some customers use and some don't, like a full finance solution, a full human resources solution, a full training management module. Those are all optional. You can either use them and they're inherently integrated, or you can integrate to whatever finance, HR, training management systems that you have today. And again, most of our customers use a pretty big piece of our footprint, but for the aviation space, we're usually not your corporate finance background, although sometimes we are the subledger for the maintenance department. So where I'm going with all of this is this piece on the side here is what we call a navigator. And this basically shows me all the different pages in the user interface that I can go to. And if I go back to the very, very top level of our entire system, and again, remember, I'm a super user, I can do absolutely anything. Here are all the areas that we have in the system. So there's a bunch of administrative stuff. This is the HR system. As you drill down into it, you see like manager services, HCM services, team management, employee development, pay. So pure HR capabilities. You also see, I'm going to come back to the aviation piece in a moment. Full warehouse management, and it really doesn't matter what you're doing. Is for aviation, or whether that's for, again, an oil and gas company maintaining an oil rig or a refinery. CRM, if you're doing sales in those organizations, we have a complete CRM module where you can do lead generation, converting leads into business opportunities, convert those opportunities into sales line items, et cetera. So what I'm highlighting here is you can pick and choose which pieces of this you need for your solution, but they all talk to one another. So they don't stand by themselves. You don't get a login that says, oh, this is how I log into the airline, and this is how I log into the MRO. It is one system. But our user permissions and controls are extremely granular. And you can control and map what a user can see, even if the user persona. So what a person does is the same, but in different areas. So what I mean by that, I'm a super user. If I go home for a second and I drill down into, say, it's technician, to my lobby page, we talked a lot about, by the way, so lobby page is basically a dashboard. We have hundreds of dashboards out of the box, comprised of thousands of different lobby elements. So it's these little blocks, but you can edit, configure, duplicate, rearrange, remove items, add items, and create whole new lobbies and new lobby elements yourselves. And you absolutely do not need to be a software developer. It's all through the user interface. There's a little bit of training you need to just understand how you do it, but I actually did that this morning in real time, and it took me 2 minutes to create a new lobby, add a new element that didn't even exist previously. So lobbies are extremely flexible, extremely capable. The other thing that they can do is they can control with the same lobby what a user sees. So if I log in as a technician, as a super user, I belong to every site, every company, everything in the system. That's my user here, Jake Green in the top corner. So if I started digging down into like the fleet list, for example, I can see every single aircraft in the system. And this page will populate whatever I want it to for that user. But as an example, I'm actually going to use a different lobby for a second here. This is actually probably a good one. Outsourced heavy maintenance. So this is one of the views for overseeing heavy maintenance work packages. There's a number of different ones that you can use. It has it's called a page parameter. And that page parameter pulls in this case, just the work package and status. But one of the things that it can include, and in fact, because I have permission, I can edit this, is I forget the exact structure here, so this probably won't, I won't get it right without looking the checking the right value, but there is, for example, there's a value that you can set here, and the administrator who can control this page can determine, can the user see and or modify that value? So one of the things I could pass through is that my user's default site, or user has a default site that they work at, has a default company that they're assigned to. If I tell it just use that user's default site and don't show it as a parameter, and I probably don't have the format exactly right, so it's likely going to throw an error. Oh, perfect. So I, as a user, I can't change that. But what it does is everything on this page will pick up that site filter and filter down those elements to only that site. So you can extend that to things like today, the folks who work on defense aircraft, is the company structured in a way where they belong to a different department or a different legal entity, like a different MRO, or do the same people work on commercial and defense? Like your users, your technicians, do they only work on defense or commercial, or do they work on both?
We're different.
Yeah, only on one or the other. And from a company structure, do those people belong to different companies within here? Like does GMF have GMF MRO commercial, GMF MRO events or anything like that from just a company structure?
So EML reporting separate. You know, ISS says you are the.
We are doing separately. We have a business line in commercial, and we have a business line in defense. So we have our entity, like our finance is focusing on defense, our sales team is focusing on defense, technician. Right. But that's looking at defense too.
Yeah. So ultimately, regardless of how you've structured it, this value can read different attributes. So even if, let's say you have military and commercial at the same site, this isn't the one that you're going to want. But there's other attributes that those users can be assigned to. And if there isn't the attribute that you want to filter that, one of the other things we demonstrated this morning is adding your own fields or your own values into the user interface is also extremely simple. So all that to say, from a separation of what a user sees and does, you can either have an entirely different lobby. So let's say this is commercial. What I could do is let's call that one commercial. In one click, I can duplicate it. So now I'm going to copy this. I will rename rename the copy of it to fence. So now I have, thank you. Now I have two different lobbies. They both exist. They're identical for now, but they can have their own permissions their own, the user's default that land on that can be defense on one and commercial on the other. You might begin changing them and say, okay, well, the defense guys, don't care about, later rounds, because it's defense, everything's late. Cool, let's just take that out. So now the defense one has changed, but the commercial has not. And the key here is that each lobby would have a filter that's applied that the user can't change, that is picking up one of that user's attributes to make sure that it's only displaying information for defense aircraft or for commercial aircraft. That concept applies in the entire system. So not just dashboards and not just commercial and defense, but when you get into the contract management side, who can control the contract structure and the commercial lines on contracts for this customer versus contracts for that customer. You can control those separately. And when I explained this earlier, it was a little hard to visualize. So let's go this way. If you bear with me for one moment. Okay, I'm just going to switch users for a second. So that didn't, apologies. So I'm going to switch to a different user. This is a line technician. So you saw that navigator I had the entire IFS system that I could access. Since this person's a line technician, first of all, their homepage is going to be the line technician page. And again, you can separate this between line and or commercial and defense. No, you're not doing line maintenance for defense. It's just an example. But if I go here to that navigator, I don't have, I actually have more than I should, but I don't have everything in my list because I don't have access to everything in the system. And likewise, I left this one edited, but the line technician, when I drill down into the fleet list, is only going to see those aircraft that are assigned to that user. That extends into things like the aircraft page, for example. So if I'm looking at my fleet list, and let me grab. But let me check here. So right here, for example, and this one doesn't have one defined, but one of the many ways I can control that is with authorities. So this aircraft doesn't have an authority assigned to it. But if I went in and edited the aircraft details, the different authorities that you can set up control who can access anything related to that aircraft at all. And you can define as many authorities as you want. So we could come in here and add one for, let's say the Hawk trainers that we have in there. And then the aircraft itself gets assigned to one or more authorities and the user gets access to one or more authorities. If I don't have authority to that aircraft, it's like it's not there. I can't see it. I can't search for it. I can't report on it. I can't see anything that's installed on it. In addition, following that, things like, and I won't dive too far into the supply chain side because the supply chain session is tomorrow, but every piece of inventory, including the aircraft themselves, has an owner. And again, that owner will control what you can see and what you can do with it. And that goes down to below the aircraft to every individual piece and part as well. So for example, if you are bringing in a customer owned part because they're supplying dorables, for example, for line items, you could still create an order, a demand for that part, you can still receive it in without impacting your financial reporting, because the system will know that that is an owner owned, a customer owned piece of inventory, and therefore does not credit your GL for what you're holding in inventory. Warehouses, same thing, you can have multiple warehouses set up and you can control who has access to which warehouse, so you can have complete segregation of your materials. I'm not gonna dive into that piece because we've got a whole supply chain session tomorrow. To Andrew's point, we also have for shipping purposes, export control capability, so you can register the export certificates that you have and consume them when you're shipping ITAR controlled goods out of country. There's additional things like dangerous goods handling that commercial runs into that as well, but I'm guessing you might run into more of it on the military side. So all of that capability from a supply chain perspective is there too. Most of the rest of it is the same functionality. So, when I look at a work package or hangar maintenance, when I plan that work package, since you're not tracking the aircraft, you're going to get that as a work scope. For the other folks, the commercial, they can get it as a scope, but they can also be bringing that in from the airline tracking the aircraft. So you're going to go through work package loader, which is going to give you the ability to load in what is that work scope and populate a work package itself. You're going to get the ability to go through and set up heavy maintenance contracts, the commercial lines that appear on them. And because you're doing the third party, it's the same work package design, same structure as what commercial MRO is using for, say, Air Asian aircraft. And it's the same work package view that they're using for Garuda aircraft. The only difference is when it's a Garuda aircraft, I'll go back to work package here in a second. So I had an example contract in there earlier, I've shown it already, I'm not sure where it went. But again, just kind of a quick overview, your commercial rules, so defining what type of event is it? Is it firm fixed price? Is it cost plus? Is it for non-routines, routine activities, or anything else not captured by that? Is it through a sales routing? What is the cost type based on what it is that you're doing? So material, expenses, tools and equipment, et cetera. What's the commercial type, firm fixed price, resources used free of charge? You can get into additional layers of things like, if it's firm fixed price, did you already contract in a certain amount of non-routine that you just do? And then if you exceed that, then you begin quoting them for them. Or is everything non-routine quoting and it needs to go for approval? Or is it all billable, but you only have to get approval once it's beyond a certain limit? So as you release non-routines, if they're say below, 10 labor hours and 100 hours of parts, it's just approved. You don't have to get approval from the customer. So you can set up different contract lines that then map to the different tasks and activities on the work package itself. Most of that is automatic based on the type of task and the definition on the contract line itself to tie those together. But the key being, and I just realized when I couldn't find the contract, by the way. So remember how I said users don't have permissions to things against it? I switched users. I'm still a line technician, and he doesn't have access to the contract that I looked at earlier. So I'm actually going to switch back to my super user. As I said before, if you don't have access to a thing, it's like it's just not there. I had forgotten that I switched users, and this is exactly. Yeah, I'm like, I know I showed this earlier, where did it go? I forgot that I switched users. That user does not have access to view or even know that this contract exists. So this was the contract that I was trying to show earlier with, and this, actually one that's in here that's good as well, for we talked about is part provisioning rules. I did these just as main groups, but you can get down to different groupings of parts. You can get down to the individual part rule. And then your options here are things like, is it provided by the customers, is it provided by the company? Will it go out for, external repair explicitly, and will it be via the customer? Like you're sending it to the customer's vendor, or is it gonna go to your own internal shop, or are you responsible for getting it to a vendor and back? So these are all the different, contract rules that you can set up to run a visit. I'm gonna go this way, I'm gonna do this a different way. And then.
Well, that voting, we started a little bit late, so we're already coming up on an hour. Were there any questions that you had so far, from what you've seen so far? Are there any, like, going into the session today, maybe you wanted to make sure that you sought to get an understanding that this is what they get for what is required?
Probably understand it, but I didn't get feedback that, I'm in charge. Yeah, we very much depends to need to get a deep dive on the embedded system, so we can, know, what is the gap that we need.
Right.
I think, can go on first about this, just, part. The one thing that, one thing that, required can what can, it's not, can do it separately right, from the commercial and.
Right. Right.
That's
The key.
really fun first. But yeah, we can go on first and maybe we want to know more and instead while we try to search in about what is our gap of this current system. This is uses.
Okay. Here we've got a couple things that we want that is to go over, and let's try to tie that together. Do you have any collaboration with the commercial engineering team where, just think of the questions that they had, that they might be able to ask them what it's covered with that's actually important. Yeah. The recording from this morning, hopefully that quality is good, because I think we had it in a 2 hour spent specifically on that this morning. So I didn't.
And the engineering group included the MR, like the engineering people in the MRO group that do the third party planning, even though they're called engineers, they're doing the planning there, so we covered that there. A couple things though that I think are perfect for what you're doing though. So this work package, for example, is for aircraft 238, which is just a 737 classic. And in this case, we put the package together from what we were tracking as an airline. So from the task list, everything that we knew that was going on, because it's actually our aircraft. But if I build this through work scope loader, because the customer gives me a work scope, the work package looks effectively the same. It's just going to have a different aircraft, with a different owner. And well, with a Garuda aircraft, I would never use it. With a third party, I have this option to go to my work package commercials and tie that contracting mechanism to this work package. So what's key there is it's one solution. A work package is a work package. You just have the option when that work package is for someone else to layer contract information on top of it. And once that's added in, and I don't have good data set up, so you're gonna just kind of see what the screen structure looks like. But when you get into the commercials and monitoring, you know, that's when you get into your non-routine revenue for analysis. Again, I don't have anything in here to give you the view on it, but you can kind of get an idea from what was planned, plus non-routines. This would have all the different elements that you've accomplished in here. How do they affect your price caps? You know, what was the contract grouping, et cetera. A process for your non-routines for approval, so as you raise non-routines off of the work package, it'll tell you was it auto approved because it fell within the predefined constraints of the contract, or does this need to go to the customer to be approved? And again, I don't have good data on this one, but just more of overall monitoring. How is that visit going? And just a couple more yet. Yeah, and then looking at the work package, you get, as you do work, you get a breakdown of your commercial summaries, your cost overview, your sales overview, and then the tasks, the content itself. That's within that, what contract group is covering it, what's the full sale, et cetera. Again, because this was our own aircraft, the work package I have, there's no contract on it, so it's not driving any of this. But that contract is what's gonna let me lay out all of those rules and have that add your markups, your margins, your sell prices, et cetera, on top of them. The final point I wanted to make, and it's not, actually, some of this, but it's not really defense and commercial, but it's still a separation of business, is that, KLM Air France has been a customer of ours for like 18 years. They use one instance of our solution, but they are basically two different businesses. They operate almost entirely independently, but they are buying materials, they are managing their aircraft in the same system. But when Air France people sign in, what they see is completely different than what KLM people see. There's a cargo carrier in the US called ATSG. They do a lot of work for Amazon and stuff like that. They have 4 business entities that operate under there. And LATAM in Brazil actually has 7 different legal entities. So the same thing from a, who am I buying this part for? Where should the commercials, the postings of costs and that go for that thing that I'm buying? What warehouse and owner should it live in? Who has access to it? Who doesn't? What aircraft could I issue it to and use it on? They're very similar. But in their case, they also have other tax things that go with it. So they've been using us for also, I think, 15 years or so, and they're operating effectively 7 different legal entities in a single instance of the software. So separating your airline, your commercial MRO, and your defense MRO, and making sure that people can't access and do things that they're not supposed to, honestly, it's easy. We're really, really good at that. What I think is important is we don't separate. We control who can see and do things with the data, but we don't segregate the data. You're not duplicating information. These things don't live on their own. If a user should be able to see the airline and the commercial MRO, they can see it all in one place, and it's the one and the same. The airline can be tracking all the tasks coming due and just put them into a work package. They don't go, here's what I need. I'm going to take this out and put this into MRO outside the system like that. It is one single solution.
I think I have one question.
Sure.
About from the business aspect, special marketing. Currently, as we defense, we subscribe in a serial with like aviation week about the market which are wrong over for the website. Can we do change the data history. So because we are subscribing this that website, so we can extract the data. So can we make it the data and put it on this cloud and make it more useful together?
Very likely. The only reason I'm not saying yes is because I haven't worked with that specific one. I haven't seen it, but we kind of covered it all this morning when we did the intro to the platform. We use an entirely open API architecture. So depending on how you get, the answer is almost certainly going to be yes. Exactly how you do it and how easy it is and how the users can interact with it will depend a bit on the data. But
It sounds extremely similar to a use case we have internally. We use the same system internally. And so the answer is yes, exactly how we do it, there could be a couple different answers to that. We did some roles for last week with, but, yeah, that would be an easy topic for us to get good run a specific answer on exactly how.
And we, I think we still have some folks in, so, you can have a chat with the IT guys too. They got a quick, but a little more look at the, architecture this morning. And basically, every single field on every single page can be accessed by API. And we have a full document management module, so you can link, attach, dynamically link out from any screen in the entire system. So, without having actually done it, that's the only reason I don't want to say yes, but I'm very, very confident the answer would be yes. Right, I know that was a very high level view. My apologies, there was just a bit of a scheduling communication mix up with folks there. We were expecting this to just be a little bit of a build on from what we did this morning, and that was more on, like I said, mission readiness and asset availability, mission configurations, and that type of thing. How do you, when there's a specific type of sortie schedule, how do you drive reconfiguring the aircraft automatically? I have all that ready to go, but obviously that's not what you guys are doing. So, yeah, so again, my apologies for the mix up on communication here.
I think okay, on that question.
Thank you. Yeah, if we can, after you've gone through this part of the evaluation, we ask them to have another session specifically with your team to cover a little bit more about what we do this morning too.
So, just one request. I think people from their supply chain team as well. One of the people have supply chain.
Yeah.
So they have the same system, right? To be perfect sense for supply chain to be there. Always.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll have supply chain since there will be sourcing and procurement as well.
But one can also be there.
Oh,
That's in our side.
oh, okay.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
We said that if we have time, we'll do a little bit of CRM as well tomorrow.
CRM. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that question was very.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, related to the CRM.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Around 10 time.
Okay. We'll ask them.
Yeah.
But in this, tomorrow, all constituted in
So supply chain session will be held for the morning. So when you have warehousing,
Including the defense.
yes, we have a presenter here. So we'll have 2 hours session tomorrow morning for supply chain from 10 to 12. This connect with the camp will be more into all your supply chain part requirements, which Jamie was showing in the maintenance task. The task will carry the supply chain information, right? And once we start defining it, then from a planning perspective, you start creating your part requisition, your part planning, material forecast. That will play into the demand of the supply chain. So that's going to be a kind of thing. So, I'm sorry, you want to ask some this?
packaging scenario is different with the timing for the MRO, right?
Right.
Like vendor management, it should be segregated, and about the stock, should be segregated also in the warehouse because the compliance of the compliance of the different industry and the MRO is totally different.
Yeah, so I'll take the lead to answer that. So we totally understand from an airline perspective, from a tomorrow perspective, how your supply chain will be managed, whether it is centralized, decentralized as per your strategic business units, and how you are managing your vendors. You might have a requirements to handle your defense vendors, the approved set of vendors from customers, for airlines, you'll be going for sourcing perspective. So that's absolutely point taken. So within the 2 hours of tomorrow, so what's the justice, what we could do? So there are 2 layers. One is the operational procurement, where you talk about all the slow things, your purchase acquisition, the demand, purchase order creation, upload processes. There is a strategic procurement, where you will set the foundation for how do we define your suppliers, right? And all your supplier, food suppliers, quality perspective, all the information of suppliers that will lead into your procurement. So all these will be discussed tomorrow. But again, depending on your interest, so please feel free to ask questions. We will reserve that and we'll have a follow-up because we want to give more information and make sure how it will address your business need. Yeah.
All right, so we have planning here. Maintenance planning, I think. No, maintenance planning. Yes.
This morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we talked to one piece for the third party, like the MRO. Who plans the work for Route and CityLink? Who builds the work packages for them?
Planning. The planning.
Like the people that were here this morning?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. Then I work with. Sorry, we're sort of changing a little bit as some of the people go, so bear with me for just a moment. Okay, and I know what I'm gonna do here. Make sure I've got the right group then. Actual execution. I guess it's all MRO execution. Is there commercial execution here or just defense? Doesn't really matter, I'm just more curious on that side.
Basically, have our production lead.
Yeah.
Perfect. From production leader.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay,
From even.
okay, awesome.
Production. And manufacturing.
And my apologies, so, what did you say?
I do in business development from the APU, from the business strategy, business development.
Okay,
Marketing side.
yes, so that's why you're asking about CRM
Yeah.
capabilities, okay, cool. Yeah, and to Matt's point, the short answer there is, even though it's not, it is more for MRO, but on the typical like, resident side, it's not near as much, but IFS runs IFS. We use our own software, like GMF will be in our system as a lead that became a business opportunity. Everything we're doing here, Matt will be tracking it in there. So we have a full CRM solution that we use for the actual sales that we do.
Yeah.
Just like we use our own finance system, we use our own HR system. We're not running an airline, but all those other things that I said that we have there that MROs and airlines and engine shops and things like that can use, we actually use most of those pieces as our own solution as well. Okay, so production controller, and then I know we have a material manager, material controller.
Like here.
Yeah.
Like here.
Yep, supply chain,
Either of production maintenance.
production, okay. And what other roles, do you have like a crew lead at all, or is it? Not really at the execution level?
I think it probably got it.
Okay, just pop, like higher up.
Yeah, I.
Okay,
Engineer, I'm different.
okay,
Production.
cool, just. That's sort of an idea which pieces you'll want to see a little bit more of, so, okay.
Do you want to discuss about defense or about the hangar and maintenance as well?
Again, it really doesn't matter whether it's defense or commercial, the functionality is the same.
Yeah, because we have from the hangar maintenance and the line maintenance as well.
Yeah, perfect, and that's why we,
Okay.
but it will be basically, forget commercial or defense. The functionality looks, it is the same. The rest becomes access control, making sure that you can't, if you're defense, you're not seeing or accessing commercial work. If you are commercial, you're not seeing or accessing defense, aircraft, work packages, tasks, materials, contracts, whatever. And that is easy. But the user, the way you do it is exactly the same, whether it's defense or commercial.
Maybe we can line planning and heavy planning first.
We're gonna skip the planning since
Oh, okay.
if we don't have anybody here that's relevant for.
Because hangar maintenance and line maintenance, yeah, because I think not just the planning department, but even for the the hangar maintenance and the line maintenance, they also have their own planning. So I think it's still
I think I know what you're talking about. Let me, give me just a second to set something up, and I'll start, and then tell me if I'm not covering what you want. I think we probably mean the same thing, and we're just using different words for the same thing. So I'll just be a moment to get something, launched here in the market.
We got around an hour. We got around an hour. Got around an hour. Right, almost an hour. So generally, we'll start going down the path. We'll go down that path for about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. We'll do a check. Are we on the right track, or are you expecting to see something else? If we're on the right track, we'll continue. As we get down that, let's take a quick break, come back, and then try to finish up the language part of it. So Jeremy's point, the functionality will be relevant for everyone, which works out in the way that we schedule the attendees for this session. But a couple different ways to go about getting there.
Then I'm just kind of slow here, so I'm gonna try and start and also still get this running at the same time, so I'm gonna have to move back and forth a little bit, but I don't wanna leave you just waiting completely either. So. For any execution, line or any, doesn't matter which one you're doing. Everything is done within what we call a work package. That work package typically will include what we call requirements. Usually, those requirements are the equivalent of like an MPD or MRV item or an engineering order. And those requirements will tell the work package what are the individual job cards that need to be executed to fulfill those requirements. That can vary a little bit with third-party maintenance. So again, I'm going to give you a little bit of options here. So from what I understand, we have already addressed planning for the line. They're tracking what they're doing. They're tracking those requirements. We're forecasting them due dates. Went through that this morning. We showed them how they can add those into a work package, schedule that work package to a location. We didn't get into how they execute it because that's part of what we're going to talk about now. But with that, when you're the airline, your jobs are coming straight from the AMM, and those will contain all of the people, parts, tools, and job instructions that you need to accomplish that work. And those revisions are normally brought in as the AMM is released or the MPD is updated or new ADs or SPs get released. That's typically handled by, usually it's called engineering, sometimes it's called technical operations, but it's usually handled by someone who is responsible for CAMO, the continuing airworthiness of the air. Then, when they put that work together, it's going to be, executed by the airline's MRO, typically in accordance with what they define, the job cards that they've set up. The other path to planning, and that also includes even something as simple as line maintenance. And we have some automation tools for airlines there. For example, if there needs to be a turn or a service check automatically generated every time the aircraft comes through, they don't have to do that by hand. They can configure the system to tell it every time an aircraft hits the gate, it needs a turn check, and we need a 36-hour service check. Look for the closest scheduled ground time that will accommodate that to when the service check expires and automatically put that in. So that content still looks the same. It's just it gets scheduled to a line. And the execution screens that I'm going to show do look a little bit different. What a production controller or a crew lead is looking after is quite a bit different between line maintenance and hangar or heavy maintenance. Line maintenance is working from a station monitoring page. They need to know what aircraft is arriving, how long is it on the ground, at what gate, did it arrive with any new logbook faults that need to be either fixed or deferred, are they waiting on MOC approval for that, etc. And then the aircraft's back out. So that view that a station supervisor or a line maintenance supervisor wants to see is different than the view that a heavy maintenance controller, heavy production controller wants to see as far as what's going on within their work package. The other piece that we talked about this morning already, and I think there's a couple of folks still here, but is how does that third party work get in there? And again, there's several ways that can happen depending on the contract you have with the customer, what format of data they're providing you, etc. Typically on the heavy maintenance side, they're going to give you a work scope of some kind. From what I was told earlier today, currently that mostly comes as PDF. On the defense side, how do they deliver the work scope to you that they want to carry out? What is the format that you get?
customer format from the result. Yeah, like from PDF format.
Yeah.
From the government sector is our government we can call the old school view because specific teaching package that we get from customers format is PDF. Yeah, getting hard to login, transfer the data from us perspective to our data.
Yeah, and then 100%. So I guess I mentioned this to the folks earlier, like I wasn't there very long, but I was a project party for a while, like 10 years ago before I started IFS. And 10 years ago, we had very few of the intelligent technology now that can help with that. So that was literally my job is here's a stack of PDFs. How do I get that into the software we're using to generate part demands and purchase orders and track the visit and all of that work. So I definitely understand what that looks like, and it's terrible. So we have different ways of doing that today. We have what is available right this minute, and then we have two other technologies that we've actually recently purchased, but are not in this UI yet. We still have to integrate them into that. So the piece that's there now is what we call a work scope loader, which is load work package. So I can have a shell wrapper. This is going to be a visit that we're anticipating getting. And this is just a CSV. It's an Excel file. So if you're getting it in PDF, this is not going to help you. But this is one way that I can import the work scope. And maybe, I don't know how you're doing it today, if you're just looking at PDF and typing right into the screen to translate it for your part demands. This could be that I'm going to put that into Excel first so that I can get the data validated. And in the interim, maybe I don't know if you can do it with the defense stuff, but if you can, maybe I'm dropping that in Copilot and saying, find these fields and convert that into this CSV format for me, which is ultimately where we're going as well. So the one other way you can do this that you're still not going to get is through that open API connection. So if you happen to run into a customer that does have a proper digitized solution, and if they're willing to share structured data with you, then we have through all through the user interface, either migration jobs, where you can basically say, I have a file that's in structured data. You'll upload it and you'll tell it, here is the mapping of these fields to these fields in the user interface. So that is another way that you can import that data. Realistically, the two ways that you're going to use is we bought a company called EmpowerNext maybe 6 months ago, a little more than that. Their specialty was AI technology for third-party MROs that let them ingest dumb PDFs. And I say dumb because some PDFs like you can fill in. They're talking like read-only, it's a picture. It can ingest a dumb PDF and it can analyze it and understand where different types of user signatures should belong and actually give the technicians places to sign on that now interactive PDF. And then that PDF becomes attached to whatever action or task that the user is doing. That is definitely one path. We're going to take that capability that currently still resides in that separate product that IFS now owns and incorporate it into this so that you can use it as part of the bigger piece. Realistically, that's going to happen over the next 6 months or so. We do a new feature release twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. The version I'm showing you was actually just released last week. It's still early access. So the next release will be in April. And the reality is you're not going to make a decision and install and start using a system before then anyhow. So I would expect that capability will be not standalone, but embedded in the system before then. And again, I know Mikesh knows them off the top of his head, but an example that is like Delta Airlines uses it and Kumagesh, what are the other ones I always forget?
Then within the region, we have like Excel, based in Hong Kong. Yeah, we have Focus with Asia and Singapore. We have Joramco back in Jordan. Mexicana, MRO as well.
Oh, nice. Damn. I forgot about that. So, you know, this, when I say we bought this thing, like, it's in use at big organizations for exactly that reason, so. And then the second piece that you'll probably end up doing the two of them together. Because yes, bringing in that PDF and making it interactive so you can actually do the signature and everything on it automatically is great. But you need, what we would call actual data to fill in fields in the system to make things happen downstream. You need part demands. So the card signature follows steps, but you need to get the part numbers off that PDF and into the system as a part demand. And you need to get tools off of there, and you need to get labor off of there so you can track your resource requirements and assign users to it, et cetera. And that's where our Nexus platform team comes in. So again, IFS has invested very heavily in AI over the last few months. We have an entire business unit that we've spooled up for that activity. And a couple of the very early things that they're working on is exactly that type of function. I can't tell you the name because we haven't signed a contract with them yet, but there's a very, very, very large American mainline carrier who we've gone through ingesting or creating engineering orders off of ADs and SPs. And that is already working well enough that they want to partner and finish and buy that solution from us. So being able to take the AD or SP straight from the FAA website or IFS or wherever you're under. And this isn't just a job card where it's easier to say, well, there's parts, there's tools. This is interpreting what is an AD telling you? What are you supposed to do? What is the schedule supposed to be? What is the effectivity? And turning that into an actual requirement, an engineering order with an attached job card, work instructor, start demand, all that stuff to go with it. So that same piece is likely what would get incorporated into the second part of that, which is you get this giant PDF file. You need something for the technician to sign without you having to type it in, but you also need to be able to extract the data and create task instances to drive all the things that are happening downstream. That is the realistic way that it's going to work. And again, we've got pieces of that. Those last two things in my mind are really the critical move the needle from a lot of human work to something much more efficient. On the line maintenance side, that really depends. At least in my experience, you're going to be able to do the same thing, but probably if you're doing a lot of turn and service checks for, I should stop for a moment. Don't do line maintenance for defense, but I thought I heard that you have line landing or something here. Is there anyone here for line maintenance?
Yeah.
Is that you? Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure I was not talking to the wrong people. So from a line maintenance perspective, again, you can have options. If it's a lot of one-off stuff, it's probably the same thing. They're providing you with a PDF job card or something like that, and you're going to use the same tools to bring that into a line check. If you're doing a lot of turn and service checks and basic overnight servicing, you're probably going to template yourself so that you can pick it off of there, and that allows you to begin refining the details that are on there for things like cost tracking, labor estimates, things of that, because you're doing the job over and over. When you're not going to do the same card that frequently, it's not worth bringing it as a template. That's where that turning the dumb PDF into a workable PDF is logical. I guess I'll pause there for a second. Is that the kind of line maintenance that you're doing? Are you filling in a lot of line or turn and service checks and some basic overnights, or is it different?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same, but it's all other departments.
Yeah. So probably the way that one works for you, the way I would plan it, and there's options, right? That's one of the things is there's actually more than one way to do things. But likely what I would have is, I'll leave the screen for just a second. You were not in this morning session, right?
No,
Okay.
I just remember.
Yeah, perfect. So, For Garuda and City Link aircraft, because the airline side is actively tracking everything they do from a compliance perspective, they will have everything predefined for that aircraft as far as what they have to track, ultimately get it into a work package. But if you don't have to build out an entire maintenance program for a single aircraft or type. So if you have a customer who comes through, are you mostly doing turn and service here in Jakarta and other airports in Indonesia mainly?
Yeah, all across Indonesia.
Sorry.
All across Indonesia.
Okay, perfect. And are most of the line maintenance, are those standing contracts, like you know what airlines are coming in and out and you're always doing that for them?
Yeah, that's right.
And then I'm guessing the occasional non-routine, like some random airline that doesn't usually use you, but the aircraft arrives as something that they can't defer and has to be fixed, do they then bring you in for that as well?
Occasionally in some station.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So what we talked about this morning, so for everyone else, I'm looking at a specific aircraft here. This is tail number 238. It's a 737 classic. I know it's old. We don't own an airline. So we've had lots of data that we can show. I'd love to have something newer, but I'd have to go steal someone's data to enough to make it useful. But when we look at the aircraft itself, when we go to open items and open tasks, this is everything that the airline is tracking against that tail. Every single requirement against every single, the airframe itself, plus every part that's been installed. For line maintenance, one of the things you can do, and narrow this down to just the service check. Maybe. So the service check definition, if I drill down into that a little bit. And this is the actual task for that particular tail. It's one of the forecasted ones. And if I go into task info and task definition, here is the definition of what the service check is for this type. So here is the definition of a service check for a 737. I can create a version of this that is on condition that applies to the line aircraft that I typically work with. So instead of getting a PDF and they say, hey, tail number whatever is coming in for a line check, I'll be able to go into that tail and see this on condition task available and add it to a work package. So there'll be no scheduling, the airline won't control it. You can segregate that off from what the airline is doing with their own aircraft. But you can still template this and say, this is the service check. Here are the things we do as part of that service check. So we're gonna do a service check sign off, we're gonna do an avionics check, we're gonna do a radio instrument service check. Each one of these will have one or more job cards below it that show how we accomplish it. Oh, that's just the scheduling info. You wouldn't have scheduling info because it would be on condition. So that is one way that you can do that. And what would happen then is as you're monitoring, do they give you a schedule far in advance of when aircraft are coming in, or how is that?
Yeah, usually around 12 or 24 hours before.
Okay, so not that far in advance. And they will tell you whether you need to do a turn or a service or that they need some other additional thing. Okay, yeah, so, that's basically what's gonna happen then is this would be. You probably see a lot of the same aircraft as well, eventually, like the same tail is going to come back. So because you have standing contracts, likely you're gonna add that tail into the system in advance. You will have these on condition tasks, the ones you do all the time, the service checks, the turn checks. And as soon as they say, hey, this tail is coming at this time, you're going to be able to create a work package under that tail and add this in from a template. So you won't have to get like paper copy. Now, there is the question of what is your compliance documentation that you have to deliver back to them? Do you set it up in the logbook? Do you give them an actual task fare back? How do you?
Yeah, we still mainly using paper based.
Okay.
There's everything
Yeah.
with the paper. And then we have, then after we sign the paper, we continue with administratively using the digital form.
Yeah, gotcha. So that'll be another one that you'll want to decide, how do you want to do that? Like, from my view at least, I would probably digitize it first, operate in the system, complete it, print it, complete it, if I need to. And then if they still need an 8 stamp page, I stamp that completed page. That way you're getting your real-time data. You don't have to, but that's probably the more efficient way to do it.
When you say digitize, is it something that we need to open in mobile or something when we're doing the line maintenance?
You can. So the technology that we use for all of these pages is called Angular. Angular is a responsive design. What that means is when I open this up on a different device, let me see if I can get one here quickly.
You can show the network in your mobile as well.
I think it's gonna pull up and you can create this movable. So there's two things that happen when you access this from a different device. One is it will reformat into a mode that's easier to see within the screen that you're using, but then it also modifies how the page works. Something, for example, that had been multiple blocks before, could just turn into a menu that you can scroll through to select the item, and once you select that item, you get a different view for that device.
Start finding the.
And then, the point of question, so some customers will have iPads, or some customers might have a station. So you could have a desktop nearby, where you do the data entry and stuff. It really depends on what
Right now, we have station place, the desktop stations. And, I think moving in time, we aim for using portable files, so that's why it's actually quite important for us to know that in my maintenance, we not just depend on the laptop or the desktop PC, but also it will be nice if we can also access it in mobile.
Yeah, so the current stage, if you want to keep doing it, it's a similar thing that I do it now, but you can do it whenever we're going to go people. That's all we do.
Yeah, and for reference, like, I would say 3/4 probably of our, so our airline customers are you doing real-time, complete electronic signature, electronic release to service. I know it's a little bit different from the third-party side and how far you can take that, but like Qantas has been doing, electronic signature, electronic release to service since they took delivery of the A380 like 12 years ago. Southwest went live with e-signatures right from the very beginning, whatever it's been, 5 years, 6 years ago now. And that's all they do. Obviously, every company has like a fallback plan, and for some reason, the system is accessible. Doesn't happen very often. Obviously, a company the size of Southwest, if the system goes offline, that's a big deal. But you have a plan. So yeah, we've got many customers doing. We do have some, particularly if you're doing, again, third-party MRO and your customer requires paper, they're electronically executing in real time, but they are not electronically signing. What that means is they finish the task, everything is done on their iPad or computer, or whatever they're using. There's no paper produced until the work is done. Then they click print, and the only ink going onto the paper is the signature and stamp. And then that is what they remit to the customer.
Can you give us demo, for example, with the surface check.
Yeah, I can show you a couple of things to go with that. So one thing we talked about a little bit this morning, is, as I said, this release, just came out a week and a half ago. We've been going through, when I talk about Angular, this user interface and the way that it's presented, that's something that we've been shifting to over time. Before this release, there was still quite a few screens just in the aviation maintenance part that were still on our older UI. With this release, we moved about 90% of those. There's still a handful that are left in the older user interface. And right now, that includes the electronic signature piece. So I'll show you that in a second, but it will be in the older user interface until the next release comes out. So, but just quickly on the responsive view, if I go into DevTools and pick, well, there's iPad Pro, for example, it doesn't just zoom in and out. It actually changes the structure. The phone is actually one that's more extreme, just for you to really see. See how it just redesigned the page. It didn't just zoom in and out. All those buttons at the top are gone, and instead, I can't see the screen myself very well, but instead, I now have this pop-up menu that was the buttons at the top. They're now down there as a pop-up menu. So this isn't just zoom in and out or like wrap stuff around. It will actually reconfigure the screen. So we do have a mobile app. I don't have it running here, but we only have a few dedicated apps. Most things, because of the responsiveness of the user interface, we don't have to develop a separate app because they work very, very well on mobile devices without the need for that app installation. The other problem we get into with that, we are roughly a 50-50 split between defense and commercial customers on the aviation maintenance side. Companies like BAE and Saab and of course the names are escaping me right now. Every Air Force that flies the Gripen or the Typhoon, all the F-35 engines, those are all in our systems as well. With those, getting approval to install any application device is a bit of a cloud. So that's one of the reasons why we take the approach of trying to limit where you need an app to be able to make let the user operate. So, this one, line execution specifically where we do have an app for that. I just don't have it set up. Hangar maintenance does not have iPad or something similar, so still portable. The thought is there's really no reason not to have an iPad in your hangar versus trying to work on your phone. On the line, that's a different story. There's times where it's your logs.
We follow some maintenance experience with our line maintenance. So how do we run this in IFS?
Non-routine, so if you're saying you found a non-routine during a line check. Yeah, so on this task here, I just hit start as a technician, so I'm working on this task. And I'm gonna go through, again, remember I'm a super user, I have everything turned on, what are my work instructions? Oh, steps. So I'm gonna, if there were steps here, I'm gonna go through those steps, usually for a service check. Nobody bothers putting steps into it, it's pretty basic. But if I find something wrong, I have two options. There's a different page, I'll leave this here for 1 second. If I'm meeting the aircraft and the pilot reports a logbook fault or something that it arrives with, I don't want to raise that non-routine off of the service check because it wasn't really a service check finding, it was an in-flight logbook finding. And that's going to impact reliability reporting for, at least for Grid and CityLink. So if I have a logbook fault when it arrives, There's a menu item there where I could erase a fault right off of it. And again, because I have everything, I have a lot more terms that I'm gonna see. But if I'm meeting an aircraft that's inbound, so this one here, there is no planned work. The aircraft's driving, there's nothing I have to do. But I can get assigned to go meet that aircraft anytime. And if I meet the flight crew and there's no logbook faults to record, fine, I'm done. There might be planned work, like this one here. There is a work package associated with, so that aircraft's inbound, there is already work that we're expected to do. But when I meet that aircraft and I have a logbook fault, or I should be able to do it from here. Bring up that term and I can raise a fault here. That fault is just going to be a standalone fault, not tied back to anything that I was already doing. So I'll hit raise fault. And all these forms are completely configurable by you as well. So if there's fields you don't use or extra fields you don't want included, you can make those changes. You can also control what options are available to your folks. So this is a logbook fault. I'm gonna raise it and leave it open. What is the problem? System. Do we know fault severity? What's the logbook reference it's coming? It's logbook type, it's commercial because we might have a cabin log, we might have a tech log, IFE, whatever the case is. I'm gonna go with tech log. The source by default, because of who this is and where you're doing it, assumes it's a technician, it's a mechanic. This again ties back to reliability data. You're not gonna care that much for your third-party stuff, but you are for your own airline stuff. And then the rest is optional. If it's a pink field, that's how you know that's a required field. It also throws an asterisk up beside it. No subscription still, you're okay. By default, and this is configurable, what is the labor requirement that it's going to put onto that card by default? Again, if you have the right permission, you can change this with what you have to do, but it's going to put something on it. Is that work expected to need certification? And then there's additional details that I have an option of providing if I want to.
Will there be an attachment here that we can attach by?
Give me half a second. Yes, absolutely. So as soon as the fault is raised, it exists, I can now go to attachments. And for those that were here earlier, I mentioned this, I don't know why it's turned off here. All of our, there's about 20 different services that we have under the hood. Document management is one of them. If you give me 1 second, what I had mentioned for those earlier is that we can turn, you can turn those services off and on in here. Have a moment. Comes the object connections page or where you link the services like NCRs, document management, you turn that on into object connections. It is object connection.
Yeah. There it is.
There it is. Cool. Yep. Okay, I wasn't wrong. I just can't type it apparently. So, and this would be an administrative function. I'm just setting this up because for whatever reason in my environment, I didn't have attachments turned on the fault. I have no idea why. Here. Explain briefly what I'm doing here in just a second. So not directly related to what we're doing here, but these features, things like approval routing and CAPA, which is your corrective preventative actions, and change control, so change requests, change approvals, document requirement, which is what we're doing here, NCRs, event logs. What I'm looking for is, oh, okay, I got it. Anyhow, you can attach and make these available anywhere throughout the system. And it actually is available on mine, and just there's a user error piece in there, which was me. So on our fault that we raised, user broken, and to your question of attachments, yes, I can come down. And again, your IT department can control what you can attach here, whether it's documents, media, etc. And you actually need to go back here. It's going to be so because I made that media available, the thing that makes the task page work. And again, that's an administrative function, but the question is, can I attach documents? Yes. Even if the tab's not there, the system owner within your company, whether that's IT or SME, will have the ability to turn that on the individual page. So if I reload that page, I should now see media as well. Okay. So now media, I can upload media item, whether that's a picture or a video or whatever I want from there. Again, your IT department can control file types and things like that. So you can block executable or file sizes or whatever they want. And I can either browse on whatever device I'm on or drag and drop it in depending on what the device is that I'm using. When I'm on a mobile device with a camera, there's actually an option there to hit to live go to your camera and take a picture from. I will live with this entity moving forward. I do want one thing. That said, this is in the user interface still for the moment. Going back to you asking, well, what is the release document, the task and the release to service look like? If you do that electronically. So this is what most of the aviation screens used to look like as far as format. And virtually, this about 90% of these were just finally moved into the newer UI, and there's a few that are left over to be moved on the next release. But I think this one here, so I'll do sign off on one task, a support package. We also mentioned earlier for the other folks here, we have controls and constraints there. Users have skills, licenses, certifications, etc., and that's all completely controlled. If a user doesn't have the appropriate skill to do a job, they can't assign it to themselves. They can't start it. A planner or a crew lead or supervisor can't assign it to them. It won't let them in the first place. And if they somehow were able to navigate there, they wouldn't have any sign on to it. It did the work, but I will need a licensed technician then to certify it if the work requires certification. And then if RII is needed, it will make sure that that is a different person than whoever did this certification. If you are licensed to do the work and you need cert and you're just the one who did it, it will do the work performance certification all at once. Get your license to sign that. So now from a technician perspective, when I accomplish any work, and I'm just gonna go right to saying, I finished the AP part of this task. This is gonna be a super, super basic one. What it's going to do is generate an encrypted PDF. I've got a two-factor authentication, a different password that I use to log in that it needs. And the document is highlighting explicitly what is it that I'm signing. Template, right? It's the details of the task. Well, what is it that I'm saying I did? So here's what I typed, when I did it, here is who I am, and I'm signing for it. And then I have a secondary or two-factor authentication password that I need to provide. And this is stored, again, more for the IT folks, as an encrypted blob, either in do blob segregation. So this can be pushed out to a file storage where it's cheaper to store than in. And then it's just a referential key that points to it. But now that that document is created, no one can modify, edit, change, or do anything with the document itself. So then the question back to you is, what do you provide to your customer? What do you want to provide to them? Do you want to bulk print all of these as the signed PDFs? Do you need to print them and then still have your technician come back and put an ink stamp beside it? Unfortunately, there's still a lot of third-party MROs that are starting having to do that because their airlines aren't using electronic signatures, so they won't accept it from an MRO. Ultimately, I can't tell you what you're going to have to do. You have options. You'll kind of have to decide what depending on which customers that you're working with. And then the last piece on this, I think I've got one ready, I hope. I think I lost in service check. That's in progress is actually, yeah. So this work package, all work has been completed or unassigned, deferred, something. So now I'm ready to sign off the work package itself. And I can go to. No, my apologies.
Can I see
It's complete already.
the sign test? Can you click this sign?
This one here, you didn't, I'd have to look at it. These ones, I don't think we signed off the tasks individually using electronic signature. We signed off the work package as a whole. So there are two different things, right? One is the individual tasks and one is effectively your RCS, your release of service for the work package as a whole. So the work package as a whole is right here. And I think this one was electronically signed, yeah. So there's the sign off on the work package. So I'm the one doing the release of service. Small work package. And then the individual tasks look like one that I had just had out a moment ago.
So if the planning side, if we go back to the planning side, I haven't seen yet how the planners plan the slot or the planners plan to assign job part. Can you go back
Yeah.
to the process, because this is the process has been the project done, right?
Sign up, yeah, I'm just kind of answering the questions as they come up, right?
Okay.
It's asked to show that, so. But I think from a capability perspective, there is one key piece that I want to show you as well. That is related to the work assignment, which is PPNC. So when you look at a package, something.
Yeah, I know.
But then in that case, you have to balance with time.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's take a break now.
All right.
We have two important things he does want to make sure we do before we finish the day.
Mm.
We can take a break for 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Yeah, then we'll jump right into it.
Okay.
And then we'll relate to the question.
Okay. Habis break.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oke.
Bapak Ibu.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so that's typically in our week planner. You, I had a question on it, so I'm just having fun in this year for that piece. Do the Garuda, yes, the mirror, and the third party commercial and third party defense, do they all share the same anchors, like do they move around and have the same slots? Yeah. Okay, so there's defense slots that will only ever have defense. On the commercial side, do they use third party making through a city link aircraft, or yeah, those also space out? Mix. Okay, so probably the way to
So that you almost classify that as a like, project. Yeah.
Showing.
Right, yeah, that's close.
Yeah, it's close to that, but that's.
Right. Okay.
Kalau prosesnya tadi sudah dasar lagi ya, ditulis itu tombolnya ada semua itu. Iya, plastik yang dari tadi nyari kayaknya aduh itu kemana-mana ya. Nggak kalau masuk itu kan kayak ide gitu ya. Tapi you explore. Kayaknya begini tadi plastik itu yang IFS itu kayaknya mirip sama yang sebelumnya. Iya, cenderung tuh tombolnya semua itu.
Yeah, I can take it. So basically what we have, you would probably use two different ones. The air one, we have it's called fleet planner, but it works, it is a visual slot editing tool. When you're updating your own air, it will automatically, you can put all different rules and it will automatically slot those in. Well, we'll probably have the airline side will automatically slot in for areas and then manually add third party events that will walk out. These guys. For defense, since everything you're doing is manual, you will have the same visualization, but you will be adding the events manually.
But there's the manual,
Drag and drop, make a longer, shorter, drag across, go in and you don't document every single task that's part of it. Usually you're just documenting like it's a C check, it's on, and an AG accomplishment. It's not meant to be a detailed breakout of every element that's in it. It's mainly meant for slot planning. And those elements give you an idea of the scope of work, and then the duration that's small. But moving things around, it's all drag and drop.
animated vessel and the thing can see the floor available for them.
If you want to, you can have read-only access to it, and if you want, you can give to, I'm trying to get my password reset, right, line, it needs to be reset, but.
And then again, all the work we expect to happen.
Yes.
And we want to design this class with video include the
Thank you. So probably it's,
Sorry.
this is where we show that. For anything. So
So, this is, what I'm about to show you is what we call our, production planning and control tool. Before I load that, talk briefly about this work package for, this business procedure and how the work scope of this was on having our assigned work. In this case, it happens to be one of our airline aircraft, so the work scope got either by a planner, whoever it is that puts the work packages together for the airline work, said, hey, here are all the things that we're tracking and that we want covered in this, and part of it started with the C check, which already contained a whole bunch of other items, et cetera. The work scope is the collection of individual job cards that need to be accomplished, suppressing duplication. So I think we've got a couple of folks from earlier this morning in here, but I know a bunch of others are just with us this afternoon. So take just one moment here, if I can find the notes. To do this just very, very quickly, when we talk about job cards, talk about requirements, that's the MVD, MRB, engineering order thing that you have to do. It's the when you have to do it and what it is and the applicability. You can have block that those are included in. So in this case, it was a C check. The good part about this is the C check respects the applicability of those requirements. So when I post a C check for one tail, it's rarely going to be identical to the C check for a different tail of the same type, because there are going to be some requirements that only apply to certain aircraft based on configuration, pre and post mod, aircraft serial number, all those different things. And those requirements are accomplished by executing one or more job cards. So those job cards have the people, parts, and tools and work instructions that I need to do that work. When you get into, in particular, things like, let's here is that 10 different inspections can call it the same panel. We're not going to put 10 copies of the open panel, closed panel card in there. We're going to suppress all those duplicates. You're going to get one, which also means that if you need, say, a PRC kit to reinstall that panel, you're only going to demand one PRC kit, not 10. We're also going to have the task dependencies automatically built because of the way those things are interrelated by engineering in the first place. All of this is also possible with third-party work, although depending on what you're doing, some of that information may need to be added. But this is where the production planning and control tool really becomes even more powerful for third-party MRO. So these are all the job cards that we see in 247 C check. And I will grab production planning and control. So here is the 247 C check. Right now, I've not used production planning and control to actually plan this. Now, for our example here, I grabbed a work package that's actually half done already because I want to show you something with work already underway. What normally would have happened though is at the very beginning, when you were still back at one, PP&C is production planning and control. So it's both a production planning tool and a production control tool. So this could absolutely be used when you are still in the bidding and quoting phase of a heavy maintenance visit for a third-party MRO to validate the turnaround time that you're from a scope perspective. Because this is going to help you sequence out the work that's included. How does it do that? Well, we can come in here and grab a plan. We can apply a template, which I can here. Now I want to apply to them with. There it is. Thanks. So I'm going to apply a template to this visit. It's just popping up off screen here, so I'll bring it over. So here's the template. I've only got one. Templates, you can have as many as you want, with as many different descriptions as you want, and they are extremely easy to create because you're not going to build a template by hand. You're going to do a visit because you've probably done most of the visits that you're doing multiple times before. You probably have already run them pretty well. So when you accomplish one of those visits once and you say, hey, that was a reasonably representative visit, it's either bringing your actuals, that's what this button is, then we'll show you what did you actually do. And then you can export that to a template. And it gives you your baseline starting point for how will we execute. What that looked like originally is all at once when the aircraft arrives. Be very efficient if you could do that, but that's not how it works. So this looks a little bit different, but if I make a couple quick changes here and I view by, it says phase burst in there somewhere, I know that. Anyone can read that. Where's my phase burst? It. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah, view by phase. So if I view by phase and I zoom to fit, now you begin seeing that waterfall view that you would expect to see as you move through the different phases. So we have our preliminary phase, we have an open up phase, we have routine inspections, we have, I can't read that, and continue on through close. Cool, it's a good start. I can select everything in here and I can expand all. So now you see the individual tasks, that's what these bars are. Remember, this is an in-work package. So the ones that are filled in have already been accomplished. As we start scrolling down in time, the ones that haven't been worked on yet. And I can reschedule these or move them around in a bunch of different ways. The simplest way is I can literally drag and drop them. And you can see because I move that to the right, the phase that it's part of will not be complete until here. In addition to that, if I show,
baseline,
no,
show critical path.
I do want that one in a minute, that's dependencies there. There we go. So if I turn on dependencies, for example, you can see it's drawing lines between things that have dependencies between them. And what that means is anything with a dependency that moves to the right is going to move the things below it to the right. So if this task, this task moves beyond its, moves beyond where it's at, you're going to see it bump and roll everything else to the right that has a dependency on that. Let's take a quick look here. I can overlay, this is my labor demand, but then I can add in a set up location. I think it's a top one. There we go. And we'll add in capability for here. So the labor availability, you can use either real roster information, so your actual scheduled information for users, and that's probably what you will switch to when you're in the production control phase of this visit. Or if you're doing this to validate your plan further out from now, you're probably using nominal capacities. You have an expected number of staff with different skill types, and that's what's going to generate your availability profile. So if I grab EWR hanger and I'll build a capacity from, I think my data here is fairly old, so I'm going to jump way back. This and make it effective to way over here. Good, generate that ability. Slow, okay. And now you can see that it is overlaid your availability versus your demand. And obviously we've got some problems here. There's a big spike here. There's a period where we don't have anyone working. And this is beginning with just your total resources. But typically you're going to want to narrow that down a little bit. You can filter by basically anything that you can possibly think of. Go. So we can get into, say, labor demand or labor capacity. This is the only show. Let me get those all out of there, and then we'll add back. Fuel, nope, I don't have any fuel tags. Pretty sure I've got at least a couple NDT. So let me grab this one. Oops. Still not. Avionics, gotta be avionics, there we go. So I already know before I apply, there's gonna be 39 avionics tasks, but I can also save this as a predefined filter to use moving forward. So not only will it filter my demand or my task that is showing, but now I speak specifically avionics. So usually I'm starting with just everything to get a ballpark idea, are we even close based on our total resources? At least in my experience, the reality is a significant portion of what you're doing is generally a word or whatever the equivalent skill is that you have. But then your constraints are NDT, composites, maybe avionics. You're gonna have predefined filters for those. Once you have your role profile reasonable, you're gonna start looking at those individual skills and say, okay, are there problems here? And in our case, there's actually no problem. We have more available capacity than we have demand for avionics work. We're happy with that. Kind of a couple pieces that come into play here though. Let's get rid of the filter for a second. Clear, and I'll actually go to tasks, and I can filter down to only. Okay. There we go. So we see these are the critical path tasks. These form the individual things that are dependent on one another that take us from beginning to end. Where any one of those moves to the right, it doesn't just bump a few things, it actually bumps our delivery date to the right. So if I move anything in any of these spaces right now, it's all collapsed. But if I drill down into there, I'll start seeing what are the elements that are being driven by that. And if any of those move, that's going to change the delivery date of the aircraft itself. Still from the planning side for a moment, in my mind, one of the really big things is if I plan this, so let's say I haven't done any work yet, this is brand new, I've put this work scope together. This is only half my visit. Most heavy maintenance visits, I'm going to have somewhere around as many hours of non-routine as I am scheduled work. So looking at this histogram and looking at the total time frame on here doesn't actually tell me anything accurate. This is half of a visit. Most people are here this morning. One of the things I highlighted is on the requirement, you can include a planning type, which this will inherit from the requirement, or I can define it on the visit itself, I believe. Yeah. And I can put together my non-routine factors based on work types that I'm doing. And I can apply different factors for different aircraft. So even on the commercial side, if you're working on the same type, but you know, based on history and how old it is and how they operate it, that I'm just gonna pick something, a 767 from a Southeast Asian carrier who does a lot of over ocean flights versus a Middle Eastern carrier that brought one in and all they do is fly back and forth across the desert, you expect to find a ton more corrosion on that other aircraft. I can come in and look at the different inspections and say that based on the inspection type that I'm carrying out, I want to change that non-routine factor to 3 to 1. Every 1 hour of detailed visual inspection that I do on those type of tasks, I expect to find 3 hours of non-routines that I'm going to have to rectify. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and generate non-routine buckets. I'm impatient. keeps coming through. You'll see those all just shifted down. There will now be a non-routine phase broken down by work area and skill. And these buckets are what we're going to track as filling up as we accomplish the routine work and the amount of non-routine we thought we would find. And what that then allows us to do, I think I got the right icon. Gotta be not the right one. I think that's, sorry. There we are. So when I start, and normally I would do this before I begin the work package, I can capture my original non-routine baseline. My internet's slow because I keep clicking buttons more than once and then it eventually catches up. When and if this catches up, what it would show me is the baseline amount of non-routine that I expected to see. I don't know why it isn't generating that, but there'd be a blue bar here showing this was my original non-routine estimate. And then as you complete expected tasks, it shows you how much non-routine are you generating. So it's effectively showing you if your run rate is ahead or behind of what you expected. If it's close, you're probably all right. If you're halfway through a visit and this line is way past your expected, it's telling you you're finding way more non-routine than you expected to. Because ultimately, if you have experience, you should be able to accomplish most of the routine work exactly as you planned. You've done it before, you can predict it. That's easy. The non-routine is the thing that's going to put your delivery at risk. And this would indicate to you whether you're ahead or behind that curve. And then it becomes a human activity from there to say, well, what am I going to do about it? Am I negotiating the delivery date with my customer? Am I going to put more resources on this activity? How do I solve that problem? And I don't know why the bar isn't filling in for me here. So that's all on the planning side, but this also becomes a production control tool. So typically, and this varies from organization to organization, sometimes quite a bit. The way I would use it. I'm using an old work package here right now. Normally there'd be a line here showing me the exact moment in time we are right now. If I'm a production controller, I'm typically coming in each morning, putting each of our projects. I'm looking at where we are right now. Let me just expand this over again. I'm looking at where we are in time right now and saying, okay, what is actually done? And if I see all this stuff here, actually, believe me, go back. All this stuff here is supposed to be done yesterday. That's not done. Well, my action to that is to take those items and I'm going to have to shift them to the right. So all of that needs to become today because we didn't do it yesterday. It's going to move other things that weren't done. I'm going to see what that's doing to my labor profiles. And that is usually I'm looking about 2 to 3 days out. Unless I start to get this bad wave further out because I'm only doing it a few days, then I need to rethink the whole project. I'm just smoothing that curve for the next 2 or 3 days, and then I'm letting each day run itself. I'm not trying to fix this with everything that's accomplished. It's normally a once a day thing as a production controller. I'll define that quickly. What I'm calling a production controller is usually one person who's often overseeing more than one project. They're not working on the project, but they are sort of the very top level person monitoring that. Then down from there, your next level usually is a crew lead. How we assign or batch these tasks out, there's multiple ways to do it. We have regular screens where you can search for tasks by different criteria. You can assign one task at a time to a person. Normally it's done to a crew. And you can do that either through a couple of different crew assignment pages, or I can do that as a production controller right from here. You'll note this is broken down by work area and phase. These work areas, like empennage, is actually mapped to one or more zones. So that's how it grouped those tasks into that work area. in heavy maintenance, normally, your crews are solo. You have a crew people on the left, you have a crew on the right, you have a crew on empennage, you have a crew on interior. That's fairly fun. You can set them up however you like. But with that in mind, first one, I'm probably using a filter to narrow it down. I'm just gonna do it on here. I'm gonna grab a batch of tasks in that, zone, that work area, and I'm going to, I got a picture of a person up here somewhere. I think right there. Yeah, assign task and crew. I only have a couple of crews, in my system, but here we have a couple of different heavy maintenance crews. As a production controller, probably I'm batching what I believe to be the day's worth of tasks, or maybe the shift, depending on how much I work, down to the crew that I want working on it. Now that that's down to that crew, the crew lead that I assigned it to, again, this depends on company. You can have the crew lead then go and assign every task to the individuals on their team. In my experience, that's not how it's done. I never did it that way, and I wouldn't do it that way. We have a pre-shift. This is done just before the shift starts, usually as a crew lead. I'm having a meeting with my team. We're looking at what we're supposed to do, and I'm like, you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that. Those technicians can have a view that's called assigned to my crew. And if you tell me to go do something, I'm going to that task and I'm clicking assign to me. Because as a crew lead, I have no interest in clicking on every individual task to assign it to a person. I'm going to tell them they're going to assign it to themselves. But you can do that however you see fit. Also, and we do this much, in my opinion, much less in heavy maintenance, but you can also use our optimization engine to do auto assignment. I find more valuable in line maintenance, where there's a lot more dynamic set play. One technician is going to typically accomplish all work at one aircraft. I don't see as much of a use case for it here, but ultimately it is an optimization engine that can look at the availability of staff, what skills they have, where they're located, look at all the tasks in the time window that you want. You can put weighting against that. So you could say prioritize giving technicians their primary skill versus a secondary. Or you can say prioritize these basic skills like A and P to people who only have that. Pull back by one NDT or composites capable person. And so like give to your composites task or really like people. There's different options that you can tell the mission that's running that to be priority. And then it'll go through and do the auto assignment. I don't really see that as something I would use in heavy maintenance, but definitely in line maintenance. But those are all options for you. So typically, it's how work assignment happens from a heavy maintenance perspective. The other thing I want to talk about here with that template and the dependencies and the interactions between things. For your own aircraft, it built the majority of these automatically because, when it builds up the open section, pulls panel cards in, the requirement listed what panels relate to that requirement. The panels have cards, therefore, it was able to say, okay, that task needs this open panel first, so let's do an end to beginning dependency between the open panel and the start inspection. And likewise, the end inspection and close panel is related, and so are all the other items. Even when you're doing third-party maintenance, where you don't have that really defined on the individual items, because you can utilize a template that says still book certain either task identifiers or types, and other elements, the zone group those into these work areas. It might not be quite as perfect to start with as an airline activity, but it still will get you a long way to having a fully flowed out work scope. And you can still apply those non-routine buckets to really get a visual of what is the total amount of hours that we really expect to have happen. One more thing I wanted to add. Oh, and then critically again, both for the MRO and the airline, but I think the MRO too, is that you can take a snapshot and overlay when you're done, the original plan versus what you executed to look for outliers. So you can say, well, we had planned to do this task on day 3 of a 45-day visit, and we did it on day 33. Why is that? So you can do that continuous improvement loop or that root cause analysis of what happened. Well, it was a one-time part delay. Okay, that's fine. Oh, we don't own the tool we need to do that job. We had to rent it and it takes 2 weeks to get it here. We really need to plan for that. Either it needs to be planned later in the visit or we need to buy that tool. Or, this group of tasks took longer than normal. Why is that? Again, we have one torque wrench that 17 different jobs need. We have technicians looking around to share one torque wrench. Or we have apprentices doing all this work, taking longer than they should because either they're apprentices, they're still learning, or maybe we need better training or the work instructions are not clear enough. The key here is that you're able to take those learnings, what you planned versus what you executed, analyze that and take any lessons learned and incorporate them back into the template, into the hours you're planning, into the details you have in your work packages, et cetera, which for the airline, it's going to save you money, get you faster turnaround time, et cetera. For the MRO, it's going to make you more competitive. You're going to be able to work faster, more efficiently, more predictably, which is going to make you be able to put more competitive bids and ideally win more business. And if you can turn the aircraft faster, you can have more throughput, more work that you get through it. So anyhow, that's the gist of it. This does work on a publish and refresh model. So there's a button I click that will say, go check what's been done and fill in these blocks. As the controller, I can do things with this, but I don't have to publish the change to the scheduled time until I'm happy with it. Go ahead.
Is the schedule connected to the supply chain management? For example, every task is consists of hours and material.
Yep.
If we set the task in that day, give notification to our store if the material available, so they give shipment to our production or it can
Yes.
notification to our procurement if the material is not available.
Exactly right. So multiple pieces again, as usual to that. There is a material availability indicator on every task. There's a filter for materials available, materials not. There's a filter for pause tasks. So a task that somebody is working on and stop working on, but it's not done, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, every task, so when I go look at this work scope, and if I look at this task, if I open it up, there's a scheduled start date and time for that task based on where it lives in that plan. There are material demands from that task. The needed by date and time is driven by the task itself. And that needed by date and time for the part updates when the schedule of the task updates. So if you as a production controller pull it forward, it's going to revise that. And that could suddenly move that to the top of the priority list for planning. You might then get an exception notification that your current defined typical lead time, et cetera, from your approved vendors don't meet that. Some of those are configurable. You have to decide what alerts do you want, how do you want it to happen? Do you want an active alert? So it's a critical item and you move it. Do you want the material controller to actually get something, that pops in their bar here and says, hey, you need to know this? Or is it just normal changes and your material controller is always working off of a prioritized list and your change just moves that thing up or down the list based on how important it is? That actually just comes down to you as an organization, how do you want it to behave? And you can configure that to work differently depending on different criteria. So, at least in my experience on the defense side, lead times for parts are typically far longer than lead times for commercial parts. So that might be a case where, that needs to be an alert in real time. I need better notifications. I need to be warned when I'm still in the planning stage and we know that is a 9-month lead time part. I can't move the visit because we'll never get the parts on time, those sorts of things. Those are the things really where we have all the data. Some of those alert and action automatically, but then there's others that use our framework where you can actually define, we'll call them custom because they're not code, but custom alerts and notifications. And you'll decide what you want to actually have sent to whom and how. As usual, a very much longer answer than just yes or no, because it's not really a yes or no question. There's so much more to it than just, sure, you can do that. More importantly, did I answer your question? Okay. So, just gonna do a quick time check, because we're like right up to it, but I really, really wanted to get through PP and C. Just being perfectly honest, nobody else has that. We know that. Our direct real competitors, and there's only 2 of them, do not have a tool like that. That is a unique thing within, within the fit for purpose space for aviation maintenance. And the impact that can have on what you're doing is substantial. When the timing is right, we have a number of operators using it. I'm sure Matt can arrange for you to kind of talk with them and see how much of a difference using that tool made for them for planning and managing their heavy maintenance business. Because it really is a big, big differentiator. Sorry, yes.
That's for it is the part for one project. My daughter did I did it. How much material is on this new company?
Yeah, we'll probably cover that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna look to that in the morning here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Actually, we have a significantly target level planning.
Yeah.
So that would cover this.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna go into in detail, but like just as a very quick look, and I'm happy in here, but a quick look giving me a list of what do I have going on, what parts do I have, material requests, new parts created. This is just one of the views that you have. And as we kind of showed with the lobbies, when it comes to things like that, we have all the data points in the system. Even if we don't already have the exact view that you want, you being able to create one yourself is very, very easy. The critical part is, does the system have the information? And does the system make sure that the users have to enter necessary information? And does it validate that the information is right, that you have good quality information? I really haven't talked about that. We've been talking a lot of MRO. It's a big piece on the airline side, especially. But at the end of the day, when we looked at reliability review, for example, if your system doesn't enforce accurate data collection and data cleanliness, that reliability data is completely useless. You're going to be making bad business decisions because you have bad data. And occasionally we have people say, well, it's hard to do this thing because it makes me do these things. We go, yes, it does. Because if you don't do them, then the system doesn't know what it needs to know to enable the rest of the business to make good decisions. And that's something we really pride ourselves on, is that design of that you can trust the information in the system, that it allows you to define strong business rules that make sure that users are doing the things they have to do, entering the data that they need to, and that the data has been validated or cleansed or whatever whatever the right use case is for wherever it's going into the system. Or put more simply, garbage in, garbage in.
Exactly 1 minute to go, Magnus. So one of the things that was asked by us was how we manage manpower-based constraint planning on the hangar side. I think that's what Jeremy demonstrated now. Is that okay? Because there's another scope when it comes to engine side. We would cover that tomorrow probably. But this was definitely one of the key topics that JMF wanted to see, and I guess Jeremy has covered it. So, okay, Matt, what's it?
Oh, that's it.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, sir.
The tools that you just described, it's something that in fine maintenance, I think because what is show is maybe a very usable in hangar setting.
Yeah, you absolutely do not use it in line.
Yeah, actually, my question is, do you have any similar tools that you might be developing, or maybe it's already in IFS, that
mimics the same feature, but for line maintenance. Because in line maintenance, we are managing like aircraft, not aircraft in maintenance process. And it means something that we internally been in development for several months now. Instead of like structuring the task as a Gantt chart, we structuring the line maintenance handling, like we have 10 aircraft that will come into in same hours, and how we manage our manpower to do the clash handling.
Yeah, that's it.
But I see that tools will be very useful for our line maintenance. If you also have that in place in these IFS tools.
Yeah, and the short answer is, before the line maintenance screens moved to this new UI, we already had lobbies to support that. They moved the new screens. I actually haven't had time to see what, if any, new lobbies that better surface that data. So the short answer is, I don't know, but I will have a look tonight to see if I have some better ones to show you tomorrow. If not, then they will be coming. I know that with this release, they planned a lot. There's a couple things they didn't get to. Some of it is they brought the functionality in, but didn't get all the new lobbies that they wanted in place. So some of that does exist in the older UI. The only reason I haven't shown you any of that was it's still there, and our current customers will keep using it for quite a while as they transition to the new UI. We weren't going to just take it away and then they're forced to deal with change management. We want to give them as much time as they need to transition their users. But I haven't shown you those wrappable screens for line planning because they are the old screens. I'd be showing you something that you won't get. There will be new ones for when you come in. So I can show them to you more if you want to see them, but everything I'm showing you, this is the absolute, like, literally this was released a week and a half ago, this version. So, just, being upfront with exactly what's there.
One more question. Regarding the demo, can we revisit the demo with thumbs up in it? Or is it already paused?
I have it, not this time out. As long as I don't click the box, you can still see it. Our internet's a little flaky here, so.
Is it automatically structured like that, or we need to predefine it ourselves first, and then we use that as a template? Or we can just throw 100 task out and then it will restructure like that automatically?
So the very first time, if you do not have a template at all, typically you wouldn't even look at BPC. Let's say, and I don't know all of them, let's say you do on the commercial side, a 777 CJ. You would just do it like you normally do. You wouldn't worry about BPC, because as your technicians do the work, the system will timestamp when those activities happen. Then after the visit's done, as long as you feel like the visit went reasonable, you can actually bring the actuals in here. It'll show you when did you actually do those things. And then you can export that and make it a template. And then the next visit is when you would use that one, if you want to get kind of that head start. Otherwise, yes, you do have to come in here and you have to do the initial work of, okay, what phases do I want to define? And what work types live in those phases? What work areas do I want to define? And what zones live in those work areas? It will auto-assign the tasks. There's actually an auto-assign button, but you first have to set up that relationship to say, all zone, I'm gonna screw it up, but all zone 700 items go in the right wing work area. And then you auto-assign and find all the tasks that have zone 500, and it will put them in that area. But there is definitely some setup required. It's not just the first time you open it up, it suddenly has this perfect sequence plan with everything there. It does require a little bit of effort, and then it requires upkeep, because your real world plan will change and you want to refine it and make it better as you go along. So
For implementing this, we have a local customer that is very open. Be part of the do that, I should be able to. Any other questions?
Oh,
In line maintenance, we have foreign customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. They require us to submit customer work order in PDF format. Any IFS accommodate the input like aircraft registration, customer name, inspection type.
Yeah, so the line is for foreign customers that require the PDF version of the outcome.
Yeah.
So we incorporate their.
Like the PDF version of the finished
Yeah.
document.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just print them, it's printed to PDF, obviously not to, and if it's a large work package, we have customers who actually create a utility so that they don't have to do them as they go. When the work package is done, they can just collect all the PDFs and export them as the work package itself.
just we not inspection transit, report departure, the work order can be printed in PDF.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, again, one more written. So in my maintenance, one of our challenge is, after the conflict where every place gets grounded, and we have, it's about hard problems. It's a, like, do you have a model where it might be because we can cannibalize part from one down to the next PM and
100%. And an entire workflow around that, depending on exactly what you want to do. So you can raise a non-routine, but there are removal reasons for parts. Some of those reasons we provide on the box because they have certain functionality, and you can configure that as well. So by default, if you use the raw reason, that part actually gets removed and remains serviceable. That removal inherently has a demand to get a part back eventually to fill that hole on that aircraft. And then that serviceable part can be moved to and installed on another aircraft. And there's a whole borrow and loan process too. If you borrow a part to put on your own aircraft, it will automatically generate the replacement task and it will schedule it for the date that was entered in the borrow order for when the part is due back. So there's a task that will start appearing for planning saying you have to replace that component, and that task has a part demand on it for you to get a part to put on there. And you have the option to convert that to a buy if you want to. So if you borrow long enough and you go, we're not giving back, you can just convert it to buy and continue on. So a whole bunch of scenarios like that for robbing parts, borrowing parts, that whole entire process. And not just, oh, I can do it, but the logical traceability to make sure we do the proper follow-on exchanges. You know, make sure the core gets returned back to the vendor, so we don't get the core return charges.
is that already pre-configured or we need to customize it also?
The vast majority of that is pre-configured out of the box. We've had occasionally where customers want raw parts to actually still go unserviceable. And then a QA inspector has to look at it and say, yes, I agree, and click a button and remake it serviceable. You can change that behavior, but by default, that's how it behaves, and that's straight out of the box. Same with the borrow logic that I described, that's all pure out of the box. It just works.
Maybe the others haven't seen my aircraft turn that you showed. Because it's basically related to the technician part of the line maintenance, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you can show it again, so.
Yep.
I see.
For sure. That was one where they did make some changes to it, so when I was looking at it earlier, I was trying to figure out what those changes were. Yeah, there's a few different views depending on what, remember again, my user's a super user, so I actually have like all the different views. Normally, once you figure out how you want your people to work, you're not gonna give them 9 options. You're gonna be like, that's your main one, and maybe this is your second one, and that's all you see. I have so many to pick from. So this is basically, for every station location that I belong to, and I happen to belong to all of them, it's showing me every inbound, outbound aircraft. Usually at the technician level, you're only at one station, so this would be filtered to only tails coming in and out of my location. So every one of these is an expected turn. If there is work planned, there will be a work package tied to that turn already. And then I have the ability when it's not to, drill down into it, I can create a work package, I can raise a fault, et cetera. And there is one other one, if I can get it. Excuse me. This doesn't work right away, we'll leave it for the moment. Wasn't- Okay, I'm probably gonna leave it just because I forget where the screen is, but there's effectively a different view that actually now supports drag and drop for the turns. So you can see the turn itself and you can, I forget which way it goes, you can drag the turn to a user or user to the turn. So with that one there, you just see the turn itself, but to do the assignment, who is it that you want to go beat that aircraft? It's a new drag and drop assignment piece for that as well. A little different than the task because there's not, if there's a work package, there's not strictly speaking any skill required. It's only if something happens, then you might need a skill to know who can do whatever the work is. All right. Do you get that?
I think everybody has my card, so if any other questions, please just email and we'll get back to you. If we want to set a call, we can do that, or if, we can explain it over email with more documentation and share that too. Any other questions, I think, for today?
Yeah, actually, I have a question regarding the mobile app. So basically, in the line maintenance app, maybe in Apron, there will be chance the connection will be not that good. So is there any offline mode that the technician may access and then go back into the area that already covered in?
Yeah, exactly that.
Mm.
It's not a, you're not giving the technician an entire work package and sending him off to another city for 3 days. But for offline operations, yes. So typically, say a line technician knows that they're gonna be on self-service. If they have already accessed what they need for that, is cached on the phone, they can raise new faults, they can do certain actions there. They do need connectivity back before they can release the aircraft. Because it needs to validate back that everything is actually done, because it's possible that someone in planning or someone else has raised additional things that the mobile device doesn't know. So at some point, they do need to get connectivity back, but yes, it can operate in offline for a while.
Is it going to be a separate app that
That one is actually an iOS app.
is it available on Android?
I don't know.
Mm.
I only own iOS.
All right.
And the only reason I'm not showing it
has
is,
changed, radically, all the apps.
yeah. And the only reason I don't have it ready is with this release that just came out. They did a big framework update on it and they need to iron some things out on it. So basically, it's not working. That's why this is an early access release and not a production release with the new features.
Mm.